Death may be the greatest of all human blessings. The fear of death is indeed the pretense of wisdom, and not real wisdom, being the appearance of knowing the unknown. To fear death, gentlemen, is nothing other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not know. Either death is a state of nothingness and utter unconsciousness, or, as men say, there is a change and migration of the soul from this world to another. Be of good cheer about death, and know this of a truth, that no evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death. I am not afraid of death, for no one knows whether death may not be the greatest good that can happen to man. The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our separate ways, I to die, and you to live. Which of these two is better only God knows. Those who practice philosophy in the right way are in training for dying, and they fear death least of all men. The true philosopher has reason to be of good cheer when he is about to die, and may well hope after death to obtain that which he could not while alive. Let us reflect in another way, and we shall see that there is great reason to hope that death is a good. If death is like a dreamless sleep, I say it is gain, for eternity then seems to be nothing more than a single night. The difficulty, my friends, is not in avoiding death, but in avoiding unrighteousness. No one knows whether death may not be the greatest of all blessings for a man, yet men fear it as if they knew that it is the greatest of evils. The unexamined life is not worth living, but if death is the gateway to true knowledge, then it is something to be welcomed. As for death, I know not whether it is a blessing or a curse, therefore I fear it not. For the fear of death is indeed the pretense of wisdom, and not real wisdom, being a pretense of knowing the unknown. Death is one of two things. Either it is annihilation, and the dead have no consciousness of anything, or, as we are told, it is really a change, a migration of the soul from this place to another. I would rather die having spoken after my manner, than speak in your manner and live. A man who has lived a life of philosophy has reason to be cheerful when he faces death. The true philosophers practice dying, and death to them is the least terrible thing in the world. Death is but the separation of soul and body. In death, the soul is freed from the shackles of the body. The philosopher's occupation consists precisely in the freeing and separation of soul from body. Those who pursue philosophy aright study nothing but dying and being dead. The soul of the philosopher achieves a calm from such emotions. It follows reason and ever stays with it. Death may be the beginning of another life. The state of death is one of two things. Either the dead person is nothing and has no consciousness of anything, or it is a change and relocation for the soul from here to another place. If death is a complete absence of sensation, like a dreamless sleep, then death would be a wonderful gain. A good man cannot be harmed either in life or in death. The soul, when in death it departs pure, drags nothing bodily with it. The wise man will not fear death, but will look forward to it as a friend. One should practice death even in life, separating the soul as much as possible from the body. In death we may find the answers to all our questions. The soul, pure at departure, draws after it nothing bodily, having never voluntarily had connection with the body in life. Death might be not the end of life, but the beginning of true wisdom. The true philosopher is always pursuing death and dying. Death is either total unconsciousness or a migration of the soul. What we fear in death is the unknown, and what is unknown need not be terrible. The philosophic life is a preparation for death. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. Nothing evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death. In seeking death, we may find our truest life. To die in pursuit of wisdom is to die well. The soul sees truest when it is unencumbered by death's fear. Death is but a door through which the philosopher gladly walks. We must face death with the same curiosity with which we lived life. The greatest wisdom may lie in understanding death's simplicity. Each step in life is but a preparation for the final step of death. In death's presence, all earthly fears become meaningless. The wise soul dances into death's embrace. Death strips away all but truth from a man. To die well is to die questioning still. The body fears death, but the soul welcomes it as freedom. Death is the final lesson in a philosopher's education. In death, we find the ultimate answer to life's ultimate question. The closer to death, the closer to truth. Death is not an end, but a transformation of consciousness. To philosophize is to learn to separate the soul from the body before death does. The fear of death is but the fear of our own ignorance. Death may be the greatest teacher of all. In accepting death, we truly begin to live. Death is the final act of a life well questioned. The soul rejoices at death, for it knows what the body does not. Death is but the last step in the dance of philosophical inquiry. To die without fear is to die with understanding. The purpose of life may be found in understanding death. In death's mirror, we see life most clearly. Death is the final examination of a philosopher's convictions. The wise man sees in death what the fool fears to look upon. Death is not the opposite of life, but its completion. Life and death are but two faces of the same eternal truth. In contemplating death, we learn to truly value life. The art of dying well is the masterpiece of the art of living well. Death reveals what life conceals. Only through contemplating death do we discover immortality. The soul's journey begins where the body's journey ends. To study death is to study the greatest mystery of existence. Death is not the end of wisdom, but its beginning. The wise man measures life by thoughts, not days, death by wisdom, not years. In death's presence, the soul finds its purest voice. Death is the final liberation of the philosophical mind. The greatest courage is not to fear death, but to question it. Death is but the doorway to the realm of pure thought. In death's shadow, truth shines brightest. The philosopher dies daily to his bodily desires. Death is the soul's graduation from the school of life. To understand death is to understand the limits of human knowledge. The threshold of death is the threshold of ultimate understanding. Death teaches what life often fails to teach. In death's simplicity lies life's profoundest wisdom. The contemplation of death is the key to unlocking life's meaning. Death is the final triumph of the philosophical soul. Through death's lens, life's true colors emerge. The soul's wisdom grows as the body approaches death. Death is the soul's awakening from the dream of life. In death, we find the truth that life could not reveal. The philosophical life is a constant dialogue with death. Death is the final act of liberation for the truth-seeking soul. The wise soul greets death as an old friend long expected. In death's stillness, the soul finds its greatest eloquence. Death is the soul's final step in its quest for wisdom.